Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm going to do another rifle cartridge review today on the 6mm Creedmoor. So back in 2007, Hornady came out with the 6.5 Creedmoor. It became a very, very popular round. Definitely was overhyped in a lot of ways, but it was a cool design. It was based off the 30TC, which they had made previously. 30TC, neck down from 30 caliber to 6.5 caliber, came out with a 6.5 Creedmoor. 30TC, which they co-developed with Thompson Center, really never became much. It kind of went away. The case, the Thompson Center 30 case, is very similar to a 308 case. It's slightly shorter, has a 30-degree shoulder angle versus a 20-degree, a little bit less taper, and holds a little bit less powder. So, if you're looking for absolute velocity, the 308 case can get you a little bit more velocity. However, the 30TC case is slightly more efficient. That's not to say much, because the 308 case is very efficient. Very similar, both designed for short actions. And the 30TC was really just slightly more efficient, slightly more modern touches. Didn't hold a candle to the popularity of the 308. There wasn't enough difference for anyone to really care. So the 308, pushed on, and it is still as popular today as it always was. But then, like I said, 2007, they necked it down to 6.5 millimeter. We called it the 6.5 Creedmoor, and it was a runaway success. Part of the claim to fame of the Creedmoor was the chamber design, had tight tolerances, and seemed to be very accurate, even with just off-the-shelf factory rifles and factory ammo. So it seemed to be a really easy gun to get off the shelf and shoot at long ranges. The Creedmoor from the beginning was designed for the longer, heavier high BC bullets. And even though the case is shorter than, say, a 260, which would be the 308 case, neck down to 6.5 caliber, the overall length is slightly longer because of that longer case. And the neck's a little bit longer too. So, it was geared around those 140 plus grain bullets, geared around the high BC bullets, and it was designed for target shooting, not for hunting. Well, it wasn't long. I believe 3 or 4 years later, they started working on the obvious next step, which was to neck it down to 6mm. Now, there are Wildcats necked down to 25 caliber and 22 caliber, and potentially those might come out as a commercial chambering at some point. But as of now, there's only one that's been necked down from that 6.5, and that's the 6mm Creedmoor. Same philosophy, same chamber design, same off-the-shelf accuracy, and once again, geared toward the heavier bullets. Now, one issue, it's not an issue, but one little bit of a drawback on a 6mm is to get the really high BC bullets, like over 600, you've got to get to at least 110 grain bullet, probably more like 115 grain bullet. And those really didn't exist except for in custom target rounds. And most, your 243 or 6mm Remington, they just did not have a twist rate fast enough for that. So in a 7mm or a 30 caliber, if you go down to like a 1-in-8 twist, you can shoot extremely heavy per caliber bullets with very high BCs in the 600 to 700 G1 range. With 6mm, you got to go even faster. You really got to go down to 1-in-7, maybe 1-in-7.5, to be able to get to those, beyond 600 BC numbers, which, once again, most people historically have used the 6mm for small, medium game like antelope or deer, or as a varmint round. So long range wasn't a big deal. Now, in the custom, Wildcat world, you've got the 6mm PPC, the 6mm BR, 6mm Dasher, 6mm Dasher Norma, and then here recently the 6mm GT. So, a lot of, and there's the 6x47 too. the 6x47 Lapua. So there's several chamberings, wildcat chamberings, that are very popular among the bench rest shooters and the long-range competition shooters, and have been for a long time. The appeal of the 6mm is the low recoil. So, you know, it's fun to shoot at 1,000 yards or a mile with a .338 Lapua, you know, or something like that, but it kicks so much. And, you know, even with like a 30-pound gun, it's still going to be some recoil. And if you're shooting, you know, thousands of rounds, it's going to take its toll. So that's the beauty of a 6mm. 6mm, of course, will be bucked by the wind a little easier, but the light recoil has been a drawing for people, and they've kind of gravitated toward it. So the claim to fame of the 6mm Creedmoor is those heavy high BC bullets in a 6mm caliber, but it's off the shelf. Anyone can buy it without having a custom rifle. And it's good for a variety of things, but including long-range target shooting. So it comes out, generally speaking, in a 1 7.5 inch twist rate. And that is more than capable of shooting a 115 grain bullet, which is going to get your BC up there in the 630s. So let's compare that to some classic, well-known 6mm cartridges. The 243 and the 244 both came out in the 50s, and the 243 by Winchester had a 1 in 10 twist rate, and the 244 by Remington had a 1 in 12 twist rate. Now, Remington's thought process was this would be a great varmint cartridge. You could do other stuff with it too, but they were thinking about varminting. And that little bit slower twist rate, you know, it's going to be perfect for that. Get a little bit more velocity than that faster twist rate 1 in 10. Not much of a difference, but a little bit. Well, Winchester marketed the 243 as more of a dual purpose. So you can get up to 95, 100 grain bullets with that 1 in 10 inch twist rate. Perfect for varminting or white-tailed deer. And so the 243 was very popular, and everyone seemed to love it for its dual purpose, and the 244 just kind of died out. So then, of course, in 1964, Remington kind of redone and reintroduced the 244 as the 6mm Remington. And basically all the new rifles came out in a 1 in 9 inch twist rate. And that 1 in 9 inch twist rate, you know, is going to get you up to 105 grain bullet. And 105 grain bullet's a really nice long range bullet. The damage was already done, as I've talked about before on my channel, and the 243 gained popularity, and even to this day is very popular. Now the 244/6mm Remington with that 1 in 9 twist rate is definitely a pretty cool cartridge. The 6mm Remington is a cool case. It's just a 7x57 Mauser, neck down to 6mm, just as the 257 Roberts is a 7x57 neck down to 25 caliber. The 6mm Remington does have a different shoulder angle, though. It has a 26 degree shoulder angle versus a 20 in the Roberts and the Mauser. The one drawback, and depending on the platform you're shooting it out of, on the Remington, is its length. It's like if you have a custom gun or an intermediate action length or a Mauser action, it's perfect because it technically will fit into a short action, but you're going to have to cram the bullet really deep to make that happen. But if you want to seat your bullet out, especially if it's a heavy bullet, you're going to have either a long action or an intermediate action. So it's kind of like the 284 case. It's just right in that middle zone. But for hunting purposes, you know, loaded to their potential, the 243 and the 6mm, they're basically the same, but the 6mm has a little bit more potential, a little bit more case capacity. And then the Creedmoor is going to be basically the same as the 243. There's things that can be depending here in different variables, but generally speaking, let's say a 100 grain bullet out of a 243 is going to go around, 3150, something like that. Out of a Creedmoor, about the same, and then out of a 6mm Remington, maybe 32, maybe 3250. So the Remington has the slight edge in velocity and potential, and the Creedmoor and the 243 are identical, basically. Now, getting back to the Creedmoor, how is it different? Well, so like I said, the case from the 30TC is slightly shorter than a 308 case. Therefore, the 6mm Creedmoor is slightly shorter in its case than the 243. But once again, the overall length is a little longer because they're expecting to have the heavier bullets. The shoulder angle is 30 degrees versus 20 degrees with the 243 and 26 degrees with the 6mm Remington. And then of the three, since we're kind of doing a comparison, the 6mm Remington has the most taper, the 243 has a little bit less taper, and then the 6mm Creedmoor has the least taper. So it has less taper and it has a sharper shoulder angle. As I've made videos on this channel, I have really come to like the 6mm Creedmoor. I feel like its popularity has kind of been pulled back a little bit. It started to take off like the 6.5 Creedmoor, and a lot of people were chambering for it, and now it's kind of started to come back. I know for long-range shooters, the 6mm Creedmoor will always be popular to a degree, but it has so much competition, like I mentioned, the 6mm BR and the 6mm Dasher and the GT has a lot of competition, but it hangs out with those and it does a pretty good job. And in the hunting realm, the 6mm Remington's really not popular anymore, though it's a heck of a round. But the 243 is just dominant. And the 243, of course, is a personal favorite of mine. It's really a nice case. It's popular, it's available, and it's easy to work with. So the 6mm Creedmoor is really in a tough spot. For hunting purposes, it's going to be tough to battle out against the very popular 243, and in the long-range target shooting, it's battling out against those ones I just mentioned. But in my opinion, it's got the best of all worlds. So if you wanted a dual-purpose 6mm for long-range target shooting and for hunting, probably gearing more toward varmint hunting, it'd be hard to go against the 6mm Creedmoor, even though I'm a big fan of the 243. And the 243 can also do both of those things. But generally speaking, in our modern day today, a 243 comes in a 1 in 9.5, sometimes 1 in 9 inch twist rate. And like I said, that Creedmoor is 1 in 7.5. So if you're varminting at long ranges for prairie dog or for coyotes or something like that, the Creedmoor is probably a little better because of the high BC bullets that it's capable of shooting, which would also mean it's probably more capable just right out of the box off the shelf at long range target shooting compared to the 243. Now, if you're shooting at reasonable distances for coyotes, or you don't plan on really going beyond a 100-grain bullet for whitetail deer, then there's no reason to get a 6mm Creedmoor. The 243 is just fine. So I own a 243. I don't own a 6mm Creedmoor. Do I plan on selling my 243 and getting a 6mm Creedmoor? No, I don't. I'm very happy with the 243. If I was going to start over, though, and you told me what's the best on paper, all around 6mm cartridge, it would be hard for me to not go with the 6mm Creedmoor. The only potential problem is the availability, and it's not as popular, it's not as available to get the stuff, and it's not as many guns chambered in it. But just on paper, looking at the specs, I'm a huge fan of the 6mm Creedmoor. Not that it will ever replace my 243, but it's a heck of a cartridge. I would like to know if any of you have one. Have you shot it in competition? Have you hunted with it? I would love to know what kind of loads that you've developed for it and how it's performed. There's a rifle that I think would be really cool. It's a Savage 110, and it's called a Desert Tactical. And it's obviously chambered in 6mm Creedmoor, and it comes with a 26-inch barrel. And I believe it's a 1 in 7.5 inch twist rate. It might be 1 in 8. But that rifle looks so cool to me, except for the stock being that desert tan color. But anyway, I'm a big fan of the cartridge. I don't have one, but I'm a big fan of it. And maybe in the future I will get one. I'd love to kind of do comparisons and actually take my 243 and the 6mm to the range and see how they compare. Or if you're listening and you have a 6mm Remington, what's your experience with that and how do you think it compares to the other two? Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Until next time, take care.